I would like to rephrase or just say something I've said before in slightly different words regarding good and bad qualities of the characters and namely the protagonist of my story. That I believe that the good qualities of the protagonist should predominantly be shown to the reader and to the world around the protagonist using the character's direct actions, not from descriptions coming from either the character itself, the protagonist, or side characters around them, with the sole exception being the protagonist's opponents in actual confrontations, antagonists, or neutral characters in opposition for whatever reason, and them acknowledging certain qualities the protagonist displayed during their confrontation, and obviously vice versa when the protagonist acknowledges some achievement, some character trait of his or her opponent, then that is not something that would irk me nearly as much as me, the author, using either the protagonist himself or herself or the side characters to praise the protagonist and create this sort of a halo instead of all of this coming solely from the characters' interactions with the world around them, because I simply don't want to end up being the author that just lists the good qualities of their characters and ends up pretty much bragging about their own character and then failing to live up to those qualities within the story itself. For example, describing right at the beginning the character as smart or cunning, sharp, able to notice even the tiniest of details, and then the moment the story actually starts, the protagonist immediately forgets how to breathe. I am obviously using a hyperbole here, but that's how it sometimes feels, and I really want to avoid that because, as I've mentioned before, I am definitely lacking in many areas of real life. I'm lacking expertise, personal experience in many fields of life, and because of that, I have to set the expectations reasonably low and then hopefully work upwards from that on the capabilities of me as the author and my characters as they slowly grow and form themselves within the world that I have created. TLDR, don't overpraise my own characters, wait for them to display those qualities themselves. It's fine to an extent when an antagonist praises the protagonist either during or after a confrontation. Of course, only if the praise actually makes sense and if it does not come out as obnoxious. That's how I would put it. And now, finally, for the rapid arrows, they are going to meet someone interesting after their war with the Brotherhood of the Cat's Paw. Things calmed down at least a little bit, and Speedy displays his slowness when apparently there's been a dog following him for more than an hour with no identification mark, and only after said hour, Speedy decides that it's definitely a rabid dog and starts running for his life with the alleged terrifying monster literally breathing down his neck. He finally reaches the rest of the club members, screeching for help that he is being chased by a rabid dog. Unfortunately for his case, said beast is currently sitting on his hind legs, lifting one ear into the air, displaying the prime example of the begging position, and all around being about as hostile as a butterfly. So things happen, and Mirek accepts the dog as their newest club member, with Yindra joking that he has to know the club number because the editorial office of the Herald is supposedly really prickly about all the members of the club knowing that number, even if it's an animal. On their way to the club room, they stop by a charcuterie, or in a less French way, a store that sells meat predominantly, which their newest member is obviously very interested in. They buy him a dinner to show him that they are good friends, and when finally in the club room, the newest member of the Rapid Arrows Club gets a name, Bubbles, which he seals with a resolute bark, and then the boys agree on a shared custody, a weekly rotation of taking care of Bubbles, first one being Speedy, and on their way to Bubbles' temporary new home, Speedy urges Bubbles to issue a proper greeting because apparently his mother really likes that. When she sees Bubbles for the first time, she playfully admonishes Speedy that if elephants were roaming the streets, he would bring one home as well. He promises to take proper care of Bubbles, and the day ends with the dog having the entire bed for himself and Speedy laying on the ground, playing on a Czech proverb that says, guest to the house, got to the house, swishing it around a bit, dog to the house, guest to the house. Almost forgot one panel where the Brotherhood of the Cat's Paw is seen loitering under an underpass with Bohoshek just standing around and Longpole and Brazos leaning against the wall, observing the Rapid Arrows and their newest club member parading across the street, with Brazos noting that what a nice paw would that be. The next story begins with the club members on their bicycles enjoying a beautiful spring day, ready for an adventure, and when they stop, Mirek asks if any of the boys would be interested in a task based on self-control and discipline, and the one who accepts the task has to pledge beforehand that he will fulfill the task before even finding out what the task actually is. Redcap volunteers, with even the newest member Bubbles listening, in his signature pose with one ear lifted up into the air. I should also probably describe Bubbles, a black and white street-born mixed terrier, aka a mixture of everything, with a large black eye around one of his eyes. So once Redcap makes the pledge, Mirek tells him the task, and it's truly an arduous one. Without a single sound of disagreement, go all the way back next to his bicycle, abandon this beautiful day and a thrilling adventure to show control and restraint. Even the rest of the club members are shocked by how brutal the task is. They have been planning this adventure for an entire week, and now Redcap has to go back home. He grumbles around for a bit and then decides to just camp by himself by some stream and bet on the fact that Mirek won't be able to tell if he really went all the way back home. And meanwhile, Yindra is questioning Mirek if by any chance the task wasn't a bit too much, ruining Redcap's entire day, which Mirek answers laughing that this was in the end just a test to see if Redcap will actually fulfill his promise and return all the way back home next to his bike walking as he previously pledged, and that the rest of the club members will go after him in a while and continue with the adventure in full numbers. Back to Redcap, he's sitting around on the grass, but even though the day is beautiful, he remembers his task, his pledge, and since he himself can't find peace, basically cheating this way, he decides to actually go back and honor his own words. He's seen walking back next to his bike when the rest of the club is able to catch up, and Mirek affirms that Redcap actually was going back home and thus fulfilled the task and proved that he does have the self-control that he pledged to display. Redcap admits that it was extremely difficult for him to turn his back on the rest of the club members and the adventure and actually walk back home, and that he is obviously happy that they can continue full speed towards their venture. Well, I have to consciously stop myself from overusing the word finally, so that's a nice catch by my standards. And well, that's it for this video. I'm going to continue more protagonists and more rapid arrows whenever I get to record the next video.